Hey everyone, welcome to High Strangeness. Um, I'm so excited. So this is my first time doing this UFO paranormal live stream. I don't have much prepared. I just wanted to come on and just chat with you all and see like what your experiences are like, what your interest in this is. And a little bit about my background, how I got into this. And then I want to open it up to like open lines, kind of like doesn't Coast to Coast do or used to do these open lines where anybody could call in and talk about whatever they want. So my plan is to drop the StreamYard link so that you guys could come on video. You can keep your video off if you want to be anonymous, and you tell me your thoughts and your stories on all this. So first off, High Strangeness and my online ghost. Yep, you got it right on the nose. Dr. Hynek said that. I believe high strangeness is what he called that phenomenon where when a UFO passes over and weird things happen. Weird things happen to your electronics, the animals, everything around you. So that is high strangeness. And I figured that was a good way to kind of encompass what this show might be. And also I just like high strangeness. So thanks guys for showing up. Hi, my online ghost. Hi, Andrew Kennedy. Hi, Godfather J6. Thank you guys so much for showing. Um, so yeah, so I guess I'll get started on my UFO background. So ever since I was a little kid, I for whatever reason, was just always into the whole alien and UFO things. And also, I was a little kid in the 90s, and I felt like there was like a lot going on with people just talking about it, at least in my region where I'm from the New York City area, the Hudson Valley, which I will talk about in a second, what we're known for UFO wise. But so I guess I always had that interest because, we had those mini series happening. What was it? Intruders was a big mini series in the 90s. My mom, I remember having that book Communion, which had a picture of an alien on the cover, and my sister and I were just horrified by it. But yet I was always just intrigued, and I was always watching the skies. And I remember as a little kid, my mom was like, "Ashley, you keep watching the skies, you're going to see something one day." So I remember just going into the library and always pulling out the same book, always this one, The Gulf Breeze Sightings by Ed Walters and Francis Walters. Are you guys familiar with that whole story? Supposedly, some people were like, oh, it was a hoax because when they sold the house, they found a model of this UFO in the insulation, and they figured out that he was taking pictures of it and trying to present it as like truth. But I'm like, I don't know. If he really hoaxed all this, would he have really accidentally left behind fake UFO in the insulation in the attic? I'm not convinced, but I would always go and get this out of the library ever since I was little. And I used to just love looking at the pictures. And even as an adult, I would just do that kind of just to be nostalgic. And until all of a sudden it disappeared from the library. And I guess, yeah, that maybe it was old and the library purged it. So I went and got my own copy. But on top of that, my whole life, I am born and raised in the New York City area, in case my accent doesn't give it away. I don't think I have a regional accent. I think I speak neutral, but everybody likes to tell me otherwise. But north of New York City is the Hudson Valley, and the Hudson Valley is known as like one of the biggest UFO hotspots in the country, which you wouldn't expect, right? You would think like the Southwest, right? I guess Arizona. I hear those skies are pretty wild. But in the Hudson Valley in the 80s and 90s, it kind of died out by the time the 90s came around. But in the 1980s, there were UFO sightings constantly, every single night. And not just like, oh, something random. Everybody was seeing the same thing. And the type of ship they were seeing was the you remember the Phoenix Lights? It was that style of ship. And what was interesting was the Phoenix Lights became like a whole national news thing. And, you know, I remember hearing about it like constantly for years. When people refer to big UFO phenomenon, they talk about the Phoenix Lights. So one day, I was upstate at a UFO fair, and this lecturer, Linda Zimmerman, was talking about how in the Hudson Valley, she's like, okay, Phoenix Lights was a huge, big deal nationally. But in the Hudson Valley, we had that same type of craft, that same type of sighting every single night, and no one talked about it outside of our region. New Year's Eve, 1982. Wait, was that the date of the Phoenix Lights, or was that your sighting, New Year's Eve, 1982? So so the Hudson Valley, it was like such a big thing where people would drive on certain highways, and then all of a sudden you would see everybody pulled over, and everybody was pulled over because they were sky watching. Um, I mean, and everybody knew it. The cops knew about it. Like I know a cop who tells me, who's told me his story about this some massive craft he saw over a parkway called the Taconic State Parkway. I know somebody who lives half an hour north of New York City, and they were like, "Oh, there was a giant sighting right across the street from us. It was hovering over a building, and everybody was outside watching. Like it was just a normal thing around here, which is like mind-boggling, to the point where there was this town called Pine Bush, and their sightings that they would see were so extreme and so well known that people would drive up to Pine Bush and just park and wait because they were guaranteed a sighting. And not like normal, what you would expect, like a normal UFO sighting. Like I remember hearing a story about it looked like a wagon wheel on fire and it was flying through the sky. And it was just a normal thing. Everybody just sat there. Oh, look, there's a UFO. So every year they actually have the Pine Bush UFO Fair and Parade, to celebrate that. And they have all the lecturers come. They have a big parade. People are dressed up because that was like what they call the Roswell of the East Coast. Something about those mountains, I guess, just attracted the sightings. So that's a little bit about me in the region I'm from. Actually, I could go on and on about Pine Bush. I could like give it its own show. Because I've seen it written up in that book, Weird New York. Um, there's I don't know if you guys are familiar with the series, but there's like Weird New York, Weird California. They do it for every single state. And I first became aware of Pine Bush because I guess it was before my time. Pine Bush, the phenomena kind of died out in the early 90s as Pine Bush was becoming more built up. So I bought a copy of Weird New York and I saw all this writing about Pine Bush and I was so fascinated by it. I started going to the fair and then I would talk to the people at the fair and ask about the things that happened in this book and they would expound on it. So one day we'll have a Pine Bush show maybe and have some Pine Bush people on. Crypto Jack says, hit that like and subscribe. Thank you so much. So, all right. So I'm sorry, I keep rambling, but that's because I have a love for my region, the Hudson Valley, and I love the weird stuff that happens here. I mean, I have so many books on just the weird stuff that happens in the Hudson Valley. Silent Invasion. This is if you guys are interested, Ellen Crystal, this was an investigation, I believe, of pretty sure this is Pine Bush, very Pine Bush heavy. If you're into that, Communion actually takes place not in the Hudson Valley, but this is one of my favorites. This was the one my mom had as a kid that used to have an alien on it that scared me. This actually takes place on the other side of the river near the Catskill Mountains in Ulster County. And if you ever have wandered through Ulster County, you can imagine how creepy it must have been at night. And so when you can picture that while reading this, it's pretty disturbing, but disturbing in a good way. Okay, and my light just went out as I'm talking about UFOs, so that is creepy, but expected. Expected because I think I needed to replace that. But on the other side of the river, so Ulster County. So this is an abduction story that happened, supposedly real. People doubt the validity or the truth, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not a vocab person, of this story because Whitley Strieber is actually a fiction writer. So like, oh, convenient that a fiction writer would write this. But either way, it's an entertaining read. And he was living in New York City and his Ulster County house was his his weekend house. So he would actually have things happen to him in the city too. And there's a movie made about it with Christopher Walken, but the book is way better. But so that is Communion. And speaking of New York City sightings, the person who wrote Intruders, Bud Hopkins, he wrote another one about sorry. So this is turning into a UFO book session, but I forget what it's called. But if you look it up, Bud Hopkins, it was an incident that happened near the Brooklyn Bridge. And there was a sighting that many people witnessed somebody get abducted and float above their building into a ship near the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was even reported by police officers. So which that one really disturbs me, but apparently a lot of people saw it. So, New York City it's wild because, it's one of the most populated places in the country, or is LA the first one? But it's one of the most, and we have such a massive amount of sightings and weird stuff that happens here. You would think it would happen in more isolated areas, but I guess not. So my online ghost. Okay, so 1982. Story you had read about an officer sighting a V-shaped craft in the Hudson River Valley. Exactly. So every single night that happened here. And, we had credible people. It wasn't crazies talking about it. It was police saying that they saw it. And it wasn't just like UFOs flying everywhere. People would see them float over reservoirs and like send things down into the water. I don't know if they were sucking up water, whatever it may be. We also have a nuclear power plant around here called Indian Point, and people had seen the UFOs over Indian Point. So a lot of, I guess, high strangeness happening in the Hudson Valley. And it's interesting that it has, it died down in the early 90s. But from what I heard at the Pine Bush UFO Festival last year, we have actually had a little bit of a resurgence, which is interesting. So I wonder if that's more people being home because of COVID and just watching the skies. Hey, Hex Hoddle, good evening. Nice to see you. And you said the Gen Hex stream may be over soon. Get more people here, possibly. Awesome. That would be fun. Thank you. So Andrew Kennedy, you saw one April 24th, 2020 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it looked like a wheel of fire just floating in the sky, man. Ooh, you want to come on and talk about it? You know what? I am going to drop the link in here. So anyone who wants to come on, talk about their thoughts about this, about their sightings, experiences, whatever it may be. So StreamYard link is in there. You can keep your camera off if you want. So hi Vision Doll. Hi 369. 369. Oh, I like that. Maybe better After Effects skills. Awesome. Thanks again, guys, for coming in. Yeah, like totally. Link is in there. Anybody who wants to pop on, this is open lines, just like on Coast to Coast AM. So your camera doesn't work, but you could post a video of it somewhere. Oh, you have a video of this? Okay, you have to post this. I want to see it. Yeah, but if so your camera doesn't work, it's cool. I mean, listen, no pressure, but if you want to pop on with your camera off and just use your audio and tell us the story, I would love to hear it. I'm sure everybody else would. If not, when you post your video somewhere, DM me the link and maybe we can watch it together in another live stream. Okay, so you forwarded the link. Let's see if they are shy. Okay, cool. Thank you. Hey, Jim Rat. How's it going? So the link is in here. Anyone wants to talk about UFOs? I mean, it's not only UFOs. It's anything weird, paranormal, anything. If you guys are down for chatting, I am up for it. It's open lines tonight. So I'm trying to think if I've had any UFO experiences personally, which you would think living in one of the hotspots, I should. So you're a visual effects artist. You will be dissecting it, Vision Null. Okay. You will be our, what is the name? There was this famous guy who used to dissect all the UFO pictures, and I can't remember his name. But actually, wait, I think he was in this book. Bud Hopkins, I think, right? Is he the UFO dissector guy? So you will be our Bud Hopkins when that video drops. All right, cool. I am game. So my UFO experience. So when I was really little, I obviously don't remember it. Me and my parents were outside one morning, I guess they were having coffee, and I started pointing to something in the sky. They looked up and saw like a bunch of silver balls in the sky, but they weren't just like moving forward. They weren't moving like balloons. They were just like weaving in and out of each other and making 90-degree turns. And you see my dad, like, obviously we all like know that doesn't make sense, that nothing released nothing that's been acknowledged to us. That's, maybe some classified government stuff works like that, but nothing we know works like that. So they're like, that's UFO. We have no idea what that is. And my dad is a former pilot, so he's experienced seeing stuff in the sky that is legit. So that was my, I guess, first one. And my second one, I remember my dad, my sister, and some friends, I must have been like 18. We went whitewater rafting over near the Pennsylvania New York border. And as we were coming back, we were sitting in traffic and we were waiting to cross this bridge in the region called the Tappan Zee Bridge. And as we're sitting in traffic, I noticed something and I'm like, oh, I thought that was a star, but it's moving. I guess it's a plane because it started on one side of the sky. It moved across the other side of the sky and then it just parked itself amidst a bunch of stars, but like it still had its headlights on, like it was sitting like a plane. So then it's like, okay, well, it must be a helicopter if it stops and it hovers. And right as I was about to point it out and tell my dad about it, all of a sudden the light goes out and then it makes itself appear like a star and it completely blended with the star. So I'm like, so I saw something go across the sky, stop, and then camouflage itself amongst the stars, which kind of freaks me out because I'm like, how many things are sitting in the stars just kind of camouflaged watching us and we have no idea. So I think those were the two main ones, not much, like I said, considering where I live. So Hex Huddle, you said you believe in UFOs? Yeah, I mean, you know what? I don't approach aliens and UFOs, I think, the same way most people do. I don't think they're visitors from outer space. I think it's something spiritual and something sinister. So I definitely believe, of them in the sense that they're real and they are an unidentified, flying object, that it's an identified phenomenon. But I definitely don't think that they're friendly little beings from another planet. So Vision Null said, yeah, how can you not? Unidentified flying objects, they happen all the time. Yep, they true. And our government has been acknowledging the existence of them lately, which take that as you will. I don't think that's a good thing because, well, not to get too hostile about the government in here, but you know that they use anything to their own benefit. So I'm like, if they are admitting the existence of UFOs, then it's probably because they wanted, use it against us, maybe fake something related to UFOs. So that makes me a little suspicious. So Shock Docs, Alien Invasion, Hudson Valley, and Discovery Plus. You know what? I had meant to get Discovery Plus so I can watch the Hudson Valley documentary. So the fact that you're saying it's shocking is so exciting to me. So thank you so much. I am going to write that down because I definitely want to check those out. So Vision Null said, you don't need to be conspiracy theorists to believe an object can be unidentified. Yeah, exactly. You know what? Just because, if we can't recognize it, it could be some sort of secret government craft. It's unidentified. Jim Rat Crypto says, okay, UFO, you don't know anything about that. You're a gym rat. All right. You know what? Just don't get abducted while you're working out. It's all good, right? Well, and this will be the place to learn about UFOs. So you've seen a lot of the footage that was released from the fighter jets. Yeah, that footage was wild. And it looked pretty legit. Vision Null, would you say that was legit? I do think that it was real. I just don't trust them not to somehow use stuff against us. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Naeem Khan. Forgive me if I'm butchering anybody. I'm trying to learn everybody's pronunciations here. So 369, yes, agreed. Not from outer space, but right here amongst us. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that claim that these things do walk amongst us, whoever is, piloting these things. So Communion, the book that I had referenced earlier, there's actually a scene in there where he's back down in the city. He's not at his weekend house. And all of a sudden he notices an alien, like a gray alien, walking amongst everybody on the sidewalk. But nobody notices it. It's like they're in some sort of hypnotic state or blinded to it. So he's the only one that sees it, and it's just walking amongst everybody, which, I mean, if you wanna look at them as being demonic, then that makes a lot of sense because, it's thought that demons are everywhere. They're around us. They walk through everything. Not to get all religious on you guys, but that's my background. That's the lens I approach the world in. And I think that they say that like Satan is like the king of the air, the god of the air. So these things are just around us. So if you apply it to this and you're like, oh yeah, then totally, if you believe UFOs and aliens are demonic, yeah, then those aliens totally have the possibility to be walking amongst everyone. So that was wild. That freaked me out. Um, Many documented abductions. You've seen some docs on that. Okay, speaking of abductions, Fire in the Sky. Has anyone seen that movie? I think that has to be the scariest alien abduction scene I have ever seen. I think it might be on Netflix. I would check it out. Fire in the Sky. That takes place, I believe, in northern Arizona. A bunch of loggers were out, and creepy thing, it's based on a true story. So a bunch of loggers were out logging, and then some craft, I guess, approaches them at night while they're logging. They all try to get away. They all manage to get away except one guy, and he gets abducted by them. And then he ends up appearing days later or weeks. I don't remember what. And he tells everybody what his experience was, and that's Fire in the Sky. Another great UFO abduction movie from the 90s. I have to say 80s and 90s were like a gold mine for that. Um, Intruders is actually another great one. It's a mini series. I'm not sure if you can stream it anywhere, but I believe the whole thing is on YouTube if you want to check that out. Yeah, so that is a mini series from the 90s with forget who's in it, but it shouldn't be hard to find. Okay, so the aliens are probably in the ocean. That's where that whole USO theory comes from, unidentified submerged object, which I've seen shows just on that it's a huge thing that everybody always, makes the assumption UFOs are the main thing. But the amount of crafts that people have seen in the sky and all of a sudden dive into the ocean, and you know what? What is that statistic? What percent of our ocean is like unexplored? So it's not surprising. I don't see why they would fake the jets footage though. Oh no, I agree. Yeah. I mean it looked real for sure. Oh, Life. You know what? I saw that in the movies. It was I feel like it was a cross between The Thing, right? The Thing and Alien, but like set in space. I mean, Alien was set in space, but The Thing. Okay, so Vision Doll. So here's his professional analysis on that footage. So the fighter footage is fairly clean, although it was a digital format, very different from film, which can't be faked in the ways people think. Okay, so film can't be faked. Okay, but digitals can be faked. But basically, yeah, it looks pretty real. No, and I agree. Just like something about it seems real. Like I said, I just don't trust how they would manipulate uh, us using that footage. I give Satan way too much credit. That's just that's my background. That's my religious background. So Fire in the Sky, yeah, I saw it when it came out. I saw, you know what? I remember seeing it as a kid, and it was pretty terrifying. But I guess I enjoyed being terrified as a kid. Like my dad had me watching Alien when I was 7, and I loved it. And I remember it was probably like in ninth grade, bringing it to a friend's house, and then them just being absolutely horrified by it. So that alien abduction scene never fails to shock. Oh, I'm behind on the chat. Sorry, guys. Interdimensional, yeah, totally. It's another theory about it. So that's an old one in the 90s about the 70s. Yeah, Intruders. And I actually have the book here. Yeah. But this is how I bought it without the cover. Isn't that like what they say? Like if you buy something without a cover, it's probably illegal or not bootleg, but like stolen or whatever. But yeah, Intruders. Because the series was so great, and I remember it so much when I was a kid. I actually have it sitting near my TV right now because Amazon prints it on demand. But there's the book for it. It was actually by Bud Hopkins, who we mentioned earlier. So past lie detectors, only one got a inconclusive. Interesting. Okay, so the fighter pilots. So fire in the sky, that abduction scene messed me up as a kid, love it now though. You know what really freaks me out kind of in that? So besides the abduction scene being horrifying, do you remember when he wakes up in that pod and there's like people who've been in those pods so long, they're like dead and deteriorated and he steps in one of them? Spoiler alert, but it's not a spoiler. That is like ingrained in my brain to this day. So Crypto Jack 3, I believe the reptilians live among us. The reptilians that live among us are abducting kids. Okay. You know what? I've heard a lot about that. I don't know a lot about reptilians, but the stuff that I have heard makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting because doesn't Billy Corgan talk about actually like seeing a reptilian or seeing a shapeshifter, but he won't give too much info about it. But he said it was somebody in the music industry, some higher up, and he saw them shape shift right in front of him. And, I know he's a little quirky, but I don't see what reason he would have to lie about that. So aliens are us from the future. Okay, I've heard a lot of people say that. Sorry. Oh, by the way, this is not a political statement. This is just Leanne Womack. I'm a Leanne Womack fan. Oh, okay. The moon landing is real. Gotcha. Okay. So you're saying the lie detectors, the people with the moon landing passed the lie detector test. Um, you know what? And I am one of those people that I do believe, I might sound like a conspiracy theorist in certain areas, but I believe the moon landing is real. I believe space is real. What I don't believe is I don't understand how with like basically with the computer power of a calculator that they were able to get to the moon back then. So what I don't believe is like why are we so behind in space exploration? If with a computer that simple, they were able to go to the moon. I'm like, we should be able to be on Mars by now with our technology. So what I don't believe is like now is I'm kind of becoming less trusting of um of the government and everything they tell us. I am starting to wonder if, you know what, maybe we already do have a big space program. Maybe we do have moon bases and stuff on Mars, and they're just pretending that we haven't. Because if we could do that in 1969, we should be able to achieve far more now. So I'm actually all for the privatization of space because I'm like, listen, if the government is, let's say the government is being truthful and they don't actually have moon bases or Mars bases, and we're actually as behind as we are, then you know what? Totally privatize space because I think private companies can do a way better job than the government can. So, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, lie detectors for fire in the sky. Okay, gotcha. All right. You know what? I met Travis Walton once. He seems like the real deal. But what's interesting is he now like changed his story. He's like, "Oh, I was in the path of like the thrusters of the UFO, and the reason they abducted me was to protect me." Um, that abduction seemed a little sinister. So I'm like, I don't know. That was protecting you. I don't buy it, but it was still cool to meet him because he was one of those Pine Bush UFO fair guests. Um, yeah, watched Aliens as a pup. Ripley was your hero. Yeah, I love Ripley. I'm not sure I feel about Sigourney Weaver, but as a person, but I love Ripley. Yeah, totally. So, okay, you think we are aliens to this planet? Okay, kind of like Prometheus, right? Prometheus kind of like, posits that we were planted on this planet. What's the name of that theory? Something panspermia, where that we were seeded on the planet. A lot of people believe that there's no way that we could have developed here. Um, I mean, it makes sense when you look at the makeup of Earth and how we are. You're like, how did we just randomly get here? Of course, like I said, I'm a person of faith, so I believe that yeah, we were put here on purpose by our Creator. But definitely, like when you look at like a lot of the makeup of Earth, it doesn't make a lot of sense that the kind of life we are should develop here. But like I said, in my mind, my theory comes back to faith. I'm like, yeah, because we were made and put here. So, Billy Pumpkin LSD is a hell of a drug. Yeah, I didn't consider that, but he's so like the way he said it was like pretty. he with some real conviction that he saw something. So the moon landing was in fact real. There were several of them, not just the 11. Yeah, I am totally a believer of that. I'm like, there's no way we just kind of stopped at that. And I know people like to say there's a cities on Mars and there's like a huge UFO that's crashed on Mars. I'm sorry, not Mars, the moon. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's something weird on the moon, but I think it's like a military power thing that they just have bases there and they don't want anyone to know. Same thing with Mars. So CryptoJack3 says, "You are speaking facts. I love my hexagons." Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys being here and talking this with me because this is so much fun to me. I really enjoy this and I love the interaction. Insidious Tomas says, "Interesting thought." Yeah, my brain is just spilling out constantly, so I don't know which one, but thank you so much. See, look, like my brain is like going a mile a minute, and I have so many things I want to talk about with you guys that I'm just like forgetting as I'm speaking. But thank you all for being here and having patience with me. I'm having such a good time with you all. So Vision Null says a third of the GDP to get to the moon, and we went back many times. NASA has almost no budget. Moon only has a few elements with mining. It's the asteroids that'll be worth trillions. Interesting. Yeah, you know what? When you think about where the asteroid belt is, it's close enough that I'm surprised that we're not there more. There's so much opportunity and there's so many fascinating things there. But I also wonder when it comes to Earth's gravity, I know that you can't take like tons of stuff on Earth. Like I know people have said, "Oh, why don't we just shoot our garbage into space and we don't have to worry about it." Well, no, because if you take off that much stuff off of the Earth, then it affects the Earth's gravity. So I wonder, mining asteroids, if we are taking too much material, if that would throw the Earth's gravity off. Another thought that popped in my head is when you look at the what is it called? The orbital paths of comets, and some of them move, really quickly. The fact that they can move through the whole solar system in a relatively short amount of time. I'm like, why don't we ever hitch a ride on that? Because I think things have landed on a comet before. So I'm like, why don't we just hitch a ride, leave a probe on there and see where these things go? So just a thought, but CryptoHeartBeat says, "Now we're talking." Yeah, you know what? I had such a good time chatting this with you. So I'm so glad I get to chat all this with everybody here. So I don't know if you guys had seen this episode of CryptoHeartBeat, but Matt had a Saturday Night Live episode, I think is what you called it, and it was called Down the Rabbit Hole. And we just chatted all this sightings. We talked our theories about what UFOs and aliens might be, the fact that there's a spiritual component to it. So I had such a wonderful time. And I deep dove into some of those things that you were talking about that night too. So Vision Null says, "I don't think fire in the sky happened. I just think it's a good story. And I think he believes it." Yeah. You know what? A lot of people believe their delusions, don't they? So Naeem says, "I originally thought this was going to be a weed stream. I'm sorry to disappoint, but if it makes you feel better, before I went on the stream, I did dose my grandma with her medical marijuana. So yeah, so that's the closest we'll get to being a weed stream. Um, Okay, Anaxagoras, panspermia. Oh, okay, the word I was looking for is directed panspermia. Okay, but I guess that must be the really official name that you're giving me. So Lukey Crypto, hi Ash, hi Lukey, nice to see you here. CryptoJack3 says, "Loving this show." Thank you so much, because I'm like, am I crashing and burning here? And you guys are just staying on and being nice to me. Oh, okay. So interesting thought about the advanced technology. Thank you so much. And you know what? Because if you think about it, I'm like, when are they ever honest with us about anything? So why would they be honest to us about their tech and their space program and whether or not they have advanced technology or not? Actually, X-Files season 10. So the first episode of the revival season kind of talks about that. Like, you have to see this revival season, especially like if you just want to skip through certain things, I would say watch X Files season 10, episode 1 of season 10, and then the season finale of season 10, which I believe might be episode 6. And it talks about all these different things, the government using advanced technology, the government using alien tech. It talks about a pandemic, and this was this was back in 2016. So I would definitely check that out. And I get that that's fiction, but that's the thing I love about science fiction. I believe science fiction makes you think. I don't know if its purpose is to make you think, but it makes me think. So even though it's fake, the X Files is talking about all this advanced tech that the government has, but doesn't let us see or doesn't want us to know for whatever reason. So, and then it makes you think, okay, what is really going on? What's real and what's a lie? But I guess I'll get off my hostile to the government soapbox for now. So the asteroid belt isn't like in the movie. Average distance between an asteroid is millions of kilometers. Just have to find a stray one from the Kuiper belt to home. Yeah, that's true. It's not as clustered as as the asteroid fields that they show in the movies. Which is kind of bummer because that would be pretty cool if it was like that. So CryptoHeartBeat needs to hop on the stream with that radio voice. Totally. You know what? If anyone wants to jump in, whether it's Matt from CryptoHeartBeat or anyone, like I said, it's open lines tonight, just kind of like a coast to coast thing. We're going to try that. I'm going to put it in the chat again. And Matt from CryptoHeartBeat definitely does have, sorry, I'm getting tongue tied tonight. Definitely does have a radio voice. You have someone you specifically remind me of, but I won't say it in case you hate him. So, well, we'll save that for another time. So what if the moon isn't even real? There's a lot of people that don't believe that the moon is real. There was an experiment, I believe, on the moon where they launched some sort of bomb into the moon or detonated something on the moon, and the moon didn't have the typical vibrations that you would expect. The moon, they said, ended up like vibrating like a bell ringing, like it was something on struts, which is really disturbing because that sounds like the moon is not going to say man-made, alien-made, that it's not natural. And there's a lot of people that don't believe that it's natural because there are certain like old myths and folklore from different countries, from different cultures, excuse me, that talk about the moon not being there one day and then all of a sudden it was there, which is pretty creepy, especially when we start to line it up with science and be like, okay, well, the moon doesn't vibrate properly like a natural body would. I've heard a lot of things about the moon. Some people believe that the moon is like this mind control base and that it's right near the earth so that it has a way to influence us. I was in Barnes and Noble once and I ran across a book about all those things about the moon. And it was so mind blowing because I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but the evidence they presented was really interesting. But unfortunately, I didn't write down what that book was or take a picture of it, and I was never able to find it again. So I still look for it sometimes. But so Vision Null says, then someone pays a lot of money to make rides. Wait, a lot of money to make rides? Oh, to the asteroids? Oh, tides. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, regarding the fake moon. Yeah, the aliens, that's a pretty expensive way to control the tides, right? So Crypto Jack 3 says, I believe we're living in a flat earth. And funny how the orientation north, east, west, and south spells out news. We are living in a simulation. So flat earth theory, I have to say, like, I'm not a flat earther, but when you look at the flat earth theories, I can see why people believe in it. It is like, because they keep everything else from us, why wouldn't they keep things from us, regarding the flat earth? And isn't there like this, like that guy who was exploring the South Pole? I forget his name. Was it Edmund Hillary? I don't know. But he talked about that there was some sort of wall, that there was like a dome happening over Antarctica when he explored it. So like there's a lot of creepy things in history that don't make sense. Like one of the things that really blow my mind about Antarctica is that no one's allowed there. Like if you want to explore something at your own risk, then I think you should be able to go. Like maybe it should be a known thing that, listen, you can go to Antarctica, but we're not rescuing you if something happens, right? That would make sense. Just like if somebody wants to climb Mount Everest, there's no rescue. You climb it at your own risk. But so why does Antarctica have this rule that no one is allowed to go there without special permission? I mean, wouldn't it be like climbing Mount Everest where it's at your own risk? Um, so I don't there's something weird going on about it. And you wonder, is it a flat earth thing? Is it a UFO thing? Okay, so here is Matt. Matt just hopped on.
Hello.
Matt,
oh
thank
my
you so
goodness.
much for coming in.
I could feel a disturbance in the force.
You oh, did we just okay. We just froze for a second. A disturbance in the force, a good one.
I heard you talking about my favorite topic.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, I had such a good time chatting that with you. So I had always kind of wanted to do like this type of podcast. But once I did that chat with you, I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so much fun as a live stream. So thank you so much for hopping in there.
No, it's so cool. I wanted to support you. I tweeted it out and shared it. Hopefully we'll get some more folks. You know a lot of stuff.
Oh, I guess I'm just like curious and fascinated about everything.
Yeah.
You know,
that's so awesome. Well, I love it. I love it. Keep going. Keep going.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your support and hopping in here. So, sorry, just so Mr. Heartbeat, future president 369 says.
Oh, that's sweet.
Getting a lot of love in this chat. CryptoHeartBeat is the man. Best guest, compassion, and CryptoHeartBeat is here. So you are a celebrity. You definitely are a hex celebrity. I love it. I love all the Matt CryptoHeartBeat love. And I have to say, somebody said you have a great radio voice. And you know who you always remind me of? And I hope you won't get offended, but Glenn Beck.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
You ever get that comparison?
Yeah. That's fine. A couple old crusty guys.
No. You see, I like Glenn Beck. I like him.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to meet him in college, and he was very wonderful and kind. You remind me like Crypto Glenn Beck.
Oh, right. That's good. That's a compliment. Totally.
Yeah. So how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. I put on my jacket for you and everything.
Oh, you did? Thank you. Well, I'm pretty much in like pajamas. So I'm sorry, I'm dressed down.
No, this is so great. Well, no, I was really I'm really interested. You know a lot of stuff about all this crazy stuff. And I've been going down the rabbit hole recently myself. And it's getting exciting. I don't know if you've seen this recently, but obviously disclosure's already happened, right? Yeah. Because of what's happened with the New York Times article and all that stuff that happened years ago. But what I'm hearing, kind of paying attention to the underground, if you will, Lou Elizondo and kind of that group of ATIP and To the Stars Academy, is they're saying there's something really, really big coming by the end of the year, where they've basically planned out things with the James Webb telescope. And that some people postulate that they're actually going to point the James Webb at something that is very anomalous, if not a civilization. So, the big news coming out that corresponds with the James Webb telescope. So we got some crazy stuff going. I've got some strange ideas about that too, but I don't want to take over your stream. I just want to support you.
You know what? I would love to hear your theories about that, because when you just said that, my stomach kind of dropped, because I'm like, anytime these people want to announce something news, I don't trust it. It's definitely interesting, but it's sinister to me, So I'm like, what's going on here? What are they going to do? And how are they going to use it to manipulate us?
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, sorry, I'm having a little issue here.
No, it's all good. So I do want to hear what you think about that. Oh, okay. I'm sure I'll pop back in. And then Hex Huddle, I'll let you know about that. You called them a boomer. Ugh, you are mean. So, thank you for saying I'm enthusiastic about everything I speak about. I'm not unhinged. I'm just enthusiastic. Thank you. Okay, there is Matt again.
I pushed the wrong button.
Oh, you pushed the wrong
I'm
button.
I'm on my iPad this time. I'm not in the office, so
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do love streaming from an iPad, I gotta say. The
yeah,
iPad does some good
yeah,
streaming. But before we go ahead, because I do wanna hear your
yeah.
opinions on that, I just wanted to throw this on here. Hex Hoddle says they think you're blocked on your channel, for calling you a boomer.
No, not at all. I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer, but I wouldn't block you. Maybe some of the mods did.
Yeah, so I'm thinking an accidental block because I can't
Yeah, you're
imagine that
always
you're that sensitive.
everybody's always welcome. No, especially that. I've been looking forward to being old all my life.
That you know what? That's people say that they're happy because that means they survived. You know what?
Yeah,
And I think that's a great way to look at it because a lot of people unfortunately don't make it to that point. So it
yeah,
really is a gift when you think about it in
yeah.
that way. But not that you're old. You're a Gen Xer.
That's
And
right.
so is
That's
my
right.
mom.
Yes,
So
yes. Thanks a lot.
did I make you feel? Well, she's on the cusp. And then my dad is like a boomer on the end of the
Yeah.
boomer spectrum. But it's interesting because let me tell you, they do share like the different perspectives of
Oh
their
yeah.
respective generations, even though they're not that far apart in age. So, but sorry, not to go off on a tangent. Tell me what you were thinking about that disclosure and possibly the pointing of that telescope at civilizations.
Yeah, I'm actually right where you are when it comes to what are these things, right? So there's a lot of
Mhm,
talk of kind of hyperdimensional type of beings, right? Looking at
mhm,
things from a mathematical standpoint and seeing that, we see things in this kind of three-dimensional world and there's kind of hyperdimensional things. But I look at the
mhm,
Bible and to me, we've got basically kind of two levels that I see. We've got the demonic realm and we've got the angelic realm, and there's pretty good evidence for that. And I think that a lot of people in the secular scientific world are looking at it from um, they're just trying to research the science. And I think what is so amazing about this is we have texts, a lot of different texts from a lot of different kind of backgrounds and religious beliefs and cultures that have kind of known this information previously. And so I look at it and I go, demigods and all of the stuff that's happened with demigods in Pharaoh's times in Egypt,
mhm.
the Anunnaki, all that kind of stuff, is that I think we're going to end up discovering and finding out the truth, and I think that truth is going to actually align with kind of angelic and demonic,
Mhm.
and we won't put those terms on them because I think a lot of people are thinking it's just us here and then maybe some green aliens somewhere else, and I think they're going to be surprised, um, especially with the evidence that we see, because yeah. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
No, no, definitely. And it's interesting because uh Bobby Hexelrod actually gave me this book. Oh, I forget what it's called, but it
Bobby.
talks yeah, it talks about all those things in history and the gods, the mythical gods and everything
Yeah,
that they weren't mythical, that they might likely have been actually on the earth and interacting with humans. And of course the book posits that, oh, these are our creators. But it was interesting because I looked at that and said, okay, it's the what the book is putting forth and suggesting and saying that it really was a possibility that these gods were on the earth. I look at it in that way and said, you know what? Maybe that those were demons walking the earth and interacting with people, the Nephilim,
yep,
pre-flood times. And it's interesting when you start looking at everything through that lens and through the biblical lens, a lot of
yep.
things really do make sense in this topic in this department. Um, I wish I remembered the name of the book, but, but yeah. But so the Anunnaki, I know you last time I was on your show, you
Oh yeah,
talked about them, I guess through Nibiru
yeah, yeah,
possibly being that there's this theory of them possibly being the creators of humanity. And so when we start to look at it through that lens of, the angelic or demonic, being that the demonic is there to deceive us, and you can totally picture like it starts to make sense. Because at first I was kind of thrown. I'm like, Matt, come on, are you telling me that the Anunnaki created us instead of God? But when you look at it through that lens, oh, of course demons are going to pretend to be something else, that they're going to
yeah, yeah.
lie and they're going to say, oh no, look, we're your creators, worship us instead. And then once you that see that, then it becomes mind-blowing because it's like, oh my gosh, these things were real. These things did walk the earth, and the hieroglyphics all make sense now. So you and Bobby Hexelrod really opened my mind to that, and this is now like on a whole other level, because like you said, I'm already into this, so collecting a little more knowledge on that.
Well, and I think that I don't believe, I'm curious just like you, right? I mean, I trust in the biblical account, but I think that the things that I look at that are pretty ancillary to those and closely aligned, the Book of Enoch, for example, which gives a very interesting and similar pre-flood detail and doesn't contradict what you find in Scripture.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that is interesting to me is this idea that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive and took them as wives. And, they had offspring, which were the Nephilim, the giants, the men of renown. And in the Book of Enoch, it talks about how things got so out of hand with the Nephilim and they started basically devouring men. And, this idea that here are these creations of God on earth, right? And we're made from the framework of earth, right? From the dust of the earth, right? All the animals and everything, we've got a lot of similarities, backbones and rib cages and all that stuff. And so when you find that there are those who came, and they were named in the Book of Enoch, who came down and basically, had relations with the daughters of men, and you think of this hybrid race, right? And this is in the Bible. Like, this isn't stuff that, a lot of people overlook it, but that's a hybrid race of giants. And if you think about a lot of other cultural texts, it speaks to these superhuman, tall, strong, with great abilities. But what's, I think, fascinating about that concept is that why, you follow the rest of the Bible out and you go, hold on a second. They were not these sons of God, these angels, if you will, who came down and defiled themselves. And we know about Lucifer, and we know about the list in Book of Enoch. Well, this idea that you had it made, right? You were eternal, you were in heaven, and you came down and you did this thing, and it was not forgiven by God. He told Enoch, I will not forgive them. Instead, what he did is once the prayers of men reached the throne room of God, God heard them and basically told Noah that we're going to reset this thing with a flood. And so they were cast into the earth. And that's what it says in the Book of Enoch, is that the Nephilim were cast into the earth. And you think about this, it actually says in the Book of Enoch that these are the demonic spirits of earth. It directly says it in Enoch. And so if you think about it, let's say you just take it literally, and I'm not saying I believe it, I'm just curious about it. These are spirits that the Bible says are locked up in the earth. Is that figurative? Is that literal? If it's literal, okay, let's assume that's literal. So there are those that are demonic that are in the earth. Well, if you look at the account of Jesus when he comes in legion, right? This group of demons recognize who Jesus is, and they've taken over this man, and they ask him, please send us into the herd of pigs. And he does that, and of course the pigs run off the end into the water. And you think about this, well, hold on a second. When Jesus was here, this is an Old Testament. This is New Testament stuff where he is engaging with the spirits of the earth. And of course, it makes a lot of sense that if this place is defiled, that why would we need one who would come and would save us and clean us from this wreckage that is this contaminated place in which we are? And that's how I look at it. I don't look at it as much as, we've been created by something that's not God. I'm more saying, no, what if you take this literally? And what if you take it literally, it actually makes a lot of sense in the current context of UFOs and such.
Oh, definitely. And so many people don't want to take the Bible literally. They're like, oh, it was never intended to. But truly, yeah, when you do look at it in that way, so many things, so many questions that, have been unanswered, all of a sudden makes sense. So that's why, besides it being my faith, that's why I love looking at things through that lens, because the dots start to connect, things make more sense. And I want to go back to what you had said about the demonic spirits cast into the earth. Because it's interesting, because I'd always heard about these things where people have said, Oh, we sent something deep into the earth, and the things that we heard, we heard these sounds that sounded like screams and that sounded like, this. And I never believed it. I'm like, okay, this is some coast to coast AM craziness. Because actually, I remember my dad talking about that he heard it on Coast to Coast AM, and the audio that they played was so terrifying to him. And again, I always just cast it off like, oh, that's BS. But when you mention what you're mentioning about that and putting it in that perspective, I'm like, you know what? What if it is real?
Yeah.
What if, we are hearing the screaming of whatever these demonic spirits are that were cast in the earth, so like a lot of these things start to make sense when you do look through that lens, which is amazing to me because, for what people like to call an outdated book,
Yeah.
it's always staying relevant. We're always discovering something new, personally.
Yeah.
I've been in that faith my whole life, and there's just things are just constantly clicking and making sense, especially when we apply it to this topic.
Totally.
So Bit Finesse says howls. Yeah, that was what the audio was. It was this howling from deep inside the earth.
Bit Finesse.
Which it makes me wonder, is that why we don't like go into the earth? Like I understand, the pressure and the heat and the mantle and this and that, but I'm like, why not explore it? We have tech to explore it, but what if, it's one of those things that they're keeping from us? We can't explore it because that's what lives down there.
Well, you mentioned earlier Admiral Byrd, who was in 1947 was the one who did Project High Jump, and he went to the poles. He was the great polar explorer. He was an admiral, and he was sent, and his diary before he died that he passed to his son that was released talks about him going into what people describe as the inner earth. Is that they literally, he went to the poles and thought, for sure we have to be over the North Pole right now, and things started turning warm. And his if you're really interested in going down a rabbit hole, literally what Admiral Byrd came back to say and who he engaged with in the inner earth and all of the details around that from his diary, if that's real, then what is interesting is that the Nazis and Himmler and all these people actually are making, made relations and deals with essentially demonic forces that were trapped inside the earth. And the suggestion would be that this is where the Aryan race idea came from, that these are the Nephilim, that this is the Atlanteans. This is that group that's been there for thousands of years, but they are locked up. God actually locked them up inside the earth. And Admiral Byrd basically, went in and, his account is just unbelievable. It's the greatest sci-fi you've ever heard.
Wow.
And he meets with the master, and the master says, hey, you've been, basically, we've noticed that you have detonated these atomic bombs, and you're going to basically destroy this place. And we have a shared fate. We live here too. And you need to stop doing this. And he brought that message back, and basically they said, don't say a word. And of course, he didn't release that until his deathbed. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but you're not allowed to fly over the poles. When, seismic stuff happens, it goes around the center of the earth and picks up on the other side. And so, a lot of people want you to believe that this is a solid iron core of the earth. And I think that it's an interesting concept, but one of the things that Lou Elizondo said, and I think I said in the last talk that we had, was that he basically said there's kind of 3 or 4 different things that these, crafts could be, the Tic Tac stuff and all the stuff that they've been finding and seeing for years and years. But he said it's either, Russia or China or aliens or an unknown Earth civilization. And why he always includes that, he knows obviously more than he's allowed to say, but why would you even include that? An unknown Earth civilization? Don't we know everyone who's on Earth?
Yeah.
And the only thing that makes sense to me is that we may discover, and could you imagine if we actually discovered an interior or in, under the oceans, an entire civilization of technologically advanced people who are here prior to the flood? And I mean, you want to talk about absolutely blowing your mind, that would do it.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. And also, I think, besides that, I think it would prove the existence of, of the pre-flood accounts, the Book of Enoch. It would prove the existence of God, that all this stuff is linked. So so there would be, I think, a lot of reason why this stuff wouldn't get released, because people don't want to prove that. And I think it's like the same thing with the Vatican archives and the supposed archives that are under the Sphinx in Egypt is, there's something in that information that they don't want us to know. And they're holding on to for dear life. So and it's interesting when you start to explore why, what are the possible reasons? Are people going to freak out? Are people going to lose their mind? Because people like to say, okay, we are not told that stuff because, everybody can't handle it. And, and people, it's going to blow people's minds and people will kill themselves and everything. But I'm like, no, what if they just don't want you to know that, everything that you believed was not, was not as is, and that stuff had been covered up,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, sorry, I was just reading something about that. But I was gonna, I was gonna add something to that, but it just completely escaped my mind. But totally, I am totally mind blown. My mind is constantly blown by all that, and and I do think it's very telling that you can't fly over the poles. You can't go into Antarctica willingly.
Yeah.
I think Vision Null said you can pay, $9,000 for an expedition to Antarctica, but that's like you have to pay to go, and then they have to notify the people that you're there. I can't hop on my friend's boat and and cross that place from South America, the tip of South America down there. I think that's very telling because you could climb Mount Everest, no problem. But why can't I go into Antarctica during the Antarctic summer? So it's interesting. You wonder what's going on at those bases. Is it really Antarctic research, or is that like a security base to monitor what's going on? And it's interesting because I think the US government like gives you a medal if you've spent 2 weeks down there. And I'm like, okay, why are they giving medals, for research for 2 weeks? Because spending 2 weeks on a base doesn't sound like that big an achievement. So
no, agreed.
Yeah.
There's something going on that, there's a real interesting, when you keep people from going places and you limit flights across the polar regions, especially on the north side. And if you look at the accounts, remember that kids movie, Disney film Frozen? They did a second one called Frozen 2.
I've never seen that.
Remember? Okay, so my girls watched that when they were younger, and it talks about beyond the north wind. And this is if you look at kind of Scandinavian folklore and where Asgard comes from, right? This is the whole Thor myth that comes from up there. And so this whole idea of all the Thor movies, right? Well, there were myths from that region of people going past the north wind, and there's a number of people who kind of have these accounts of this, that there are giants and there's a land beyond the north wind. And that's the thing I think is interesting in this age of technology. I sense that your concern is that a lot of this stuff is disinformation, and it's meant to be kept kept quiet. I really think we're in this age of disclosure. It's very difficult to keep things under wraps these days, as we have seen from a lot of different whistleblowers and leakers. And I think that there's a growing demand, at least in the United States, for people to say we need to understand this stuff. And it's coming from kind of a national security perspective. I think, though, that there is some planning of this, because I think, when it comes to the biblical timeline, I think we're in kind of those final days. And I think that we're going to understand things in a new way. And there's just so much information. There's so many different perspectives. But I really do. I think in our lifetime, we're gonna understand a lot more than we ever have, and realize that that this is something that's been with us for a long, long time. That this isn't new since 1945.
There's
This is
nothing
something
new
that's
under the
been
sun.
long ago.
Definitely. Yeah. And you see those reports throughout history that it's always been with us. It's just changed its appearance through time, but they've always been there. I think it just changed its appearance to make things a little more, palatable for the people looking, which I think is also very suspicious. Like we talked about in the last stream, the fact that, they were seeing flying saucers in the 40s, but if you go back to the 1800s, they saw flying wooden ships, because I guess in the 1800s, people wouldn't understand seeing a flying metal thing in the sky. But they would understand a ship was supposed to be in the water. Why is a wooden ship in the sky? So I think that's very interesting and very telling that there's some sort of deception going on, and it's altering its deception to make it more palatable to the people. But, to relate this back into hex, you know what would be wild? So, when we are, all doing fantastic with our pulse and pulsex and hex, what if we did our own hexagon expedition to find the truth? To, like a hollow earth expedition. Let's
Yeah.
all go to Antarctica. Let's,
I say
let's
we send Brandon. We just get him on a flight and we just send him out. Him and
Brandon.
Davis can get together and they can go explore.
Wait, okay, I'm not good with people's first names. I know
So
everybody's.
Brandon from Rags to Riches,
Oh,
and
okay.
then Davis. So I think that they need to fly around the ice wall. That's an inside joke with those guys. But yeah, I mean, there are a number of people who say, well, how do you look at this? Because there's a lot of people who believe, one, that the moon's not real, right? That we're in some sort of heliocentric kind of globe thing. Some people believe in flat Earth. Some people believe in hollow Earth. Other
Mhm.
people, to think this is a bunch of baloney. It would be interesting to get some real information for people, but a lot of this stuff has become so cult-like that even if you got data, no one would believe the data is true. So
Well, I think we've seen that a lot in these past 2 years, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut, but
yeah,
you all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, for sure. So but, even for our own interests, if we could
yeah.
fund
Oh,
something
I'd
because
love to. Yeah,
when we talk about that this is like the biggest transfer of wealth in human history,
yeah,
and which is why I believe that there's so much pushback against it. Like some big financial guy recently said, "Oh, if I could buy all the Bitcoin, in the world for $25, I wouldn't do that because it's fake." And I'm like, they're purposely pushing against crypto for a reason, and I think it's because they know that it'll give us freedom and power that we didn't have before. So if we're in the middle of this biggest wealth transfer in history and we could kind of free ourselves and, from the matrix, yeah, let's all pull our money and get,
yeah.
to the truth. It'll be like the Hexagon X Files. I
There you go. I'm
would
I'm
be
in. Count
game
me in.
for that, because I know that they've tried to do hollow earth expeditions and get up money, like saying, okay, we're gonna sail to the North Pole and then see, where the hole into the earth is. But it never happened. But I'm like, yeah, let's all do it.
Let's
Let's
do
all
it.
fund
Let's
it.
do it. We're gonna
Yeah.
take our balloon around the world.
Yeah. Well,
No,
somebody
I'm yeah. I'm in. Count me in.
poured some poor dude in a balloon and send him up. Well, they're gonna be doing those balloon launches from the Grand Canyon in 2 years. Did you hear
Yeah.
about that?
No, no.
Yeah, it's I think, yeah, so it's like some sort of weather balloon that brings you just to the edge of space.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, maybe enough so you can see the curve. Yeah. I mean, okay, that might, silence the flat earthers. No offense to
No,
you flat earthers. Mwah, I
no,
love you.
no. It
But yeah, let's
won't. It
let's
won't.
send the hex earthers up in the balloon. We'll rent our own flight for that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so I love this, Maury. I came for the gains, I stayed for the journey to the flat
Yeah.
earth.
Hollow
You
Earth.
know?
Honestly, I've looked into both those topics. I would way more bet on Hollow Earth than I would on Flat Earth, but I'm here to be curious, right? That at the end of the day, I think that it's such a neat topic that there's things that we don't know.
Oh,
And
for
of
sure.
course, you start getting into consciousness and you start getting into prayer and you start getting into the power of connectedness and,
Mhm.
you know, um, our consciousness is being potentially connected and then, that, your consciousness and your intellect and all of that stuff is actually outside of your head. That's another
Mhm.
big concept that's going on right now. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a really interesting time where there's so much information and data, and I feel like so many breakthroughs. That's why like the James Webb Telescope is such a big deal because I think they're going to utilize that for more than just scientific research,
Mhm.
especially with disclosure. So it's going to get really good if you pay attention to if you follow Lou Elizondo. That's a guy I would really recommend. The people that he ends up doing interviews with, and there's a couple more CIA people who have come out and become public now. One of the things that just came out in the last probably 4 months is there's a guy named, I think it's Ramirez, who he basically said that when he put his, you have to basically disclose to the CIA what you're going to talk about. And they did not redact the information about basically hybrid humans, meaning that there are people and families and that they have discovered from the 1947 crash at Roswell that there is essentially DNA that matches those bodies that were found at Roswell. And this is something that he put into his report before he went public, and they did not redact. And so the latest thing that I've seen from that whole UFO disclosure stuff is an indication that there has been genetic sequencing of bodies that were from that Roswell crash, and that there is a connection to us, which is
That's
fascinating.
interesting. That's which kind of reminds me of that. First, yeah, just a side tangent. Reminds me of Taken, that Steven Spielberg thing, right? Because wasn't there some hybrid stuff going on
Yeah,
relating
totally.
to Roswell? Yeah, you wonder sometimes where they get these storylines. You know, they might
Yeah.
be based in reality, but really interesting that they would sequence the DNA of those crash victims, which then, you know, if you're talking about hybrids, that kind of goes back to what was happening pre-flood.
Yeah.
Hybrids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, you know, like we were saying, there's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing. It's for those of you that don't know, that's what the Bible says. The Bible lets us know that, hey, none of this is new. It's always been going on. Insidious Tomas says it'll cost around 5 or 6 million in equipment to properly prepare for a 6-month journey trip to Antarctica. It's an interesting idea, in my opinion. It's interesting. It's
Hey,
not too
we got
bad.
another person. Now there's 3 of us.
You know, there's 3 of us. No, but it's I'm gonna be old fashioned, and I'm gonna send the men to Antarctica.
Okay, thanks.
To do the dangerous stuff, and I'll sit home and I was about to say cook, but I don't cook.
That's right. No.
I'm Italian. I let my mommy cook.
Oh.
So somebody asked, so Bit Finesse asked, can we trust Christopher Mellon? His family also worked for the CIA. I mean, you know, okay, I don't know who Christopher Mellon is. Is that a
he's a former deputy director of the CIA, and he was he's the one that actually joined the To the Stars Academy with the guy from Blink 182, and you know, he knows Lou Elizondo. He's actually one of the ones that basically certified that Lou Elizondo was actually the head of ATIP. But Christopher Mellon, I think he was in the Obama administration, and he's come out. There's actually a really good documentary in which he's featured in, which talks about this most recent basically disclosure of those Tic Tac objects that David Fravor, the guy that was the fighter pilot who actually recorded chasing after those Tic Tac objects, the things that were in the videos from the New York Times. And so I don't know that I trust them. Yeah, the Mellon family and, you know, Carnegie Mellon, that's where those folks
Oh, is he from that family? Then automatically that's a no for me.
Yep, you're out.
I'm like out. Yeah, I guess what am I, just like a jaded millennial?
Yes.
Like I don't trust anybody. Actually,
I don't
my
either.
late grandfather, he would always say, "Don't trust anybody."
Yeah.
Anytime we were going anywhere, in his Italian accent, which I can't imitate, he would, you know, don't trust anybody. And as time goes on, I totally see where he was coming from.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we're talking those big families that rule everybody, those elites, when we're talking the government, anybody linked to them, I'm like, I just throw them out completely and disregard. And here I was, I'm like, Chris Mellon, is he a Hexagon? I didn't recognize the name.
Yeah.
So Bit Finesse says, I really like Christopher and I very badly want to trust him. You know what? Look, I hope he's a good guy. I hope he's rebelling against his family. You know, I'm just hostile and jaded.
He seems to be, you know, the only problem I have with that group of people is there's kind of 2 camps. One is very defense oriented. So I think that there's a group of people who are very hawkish and very kind of warmongering types who see this as a national security threat, and they're approaching it from that perspective. And I think that there's another group of people who think that we need to look at this from much more of a scientific and potentially even you know, religious perspective, or at least a psychological perspective, that this is metaphysical and there's more to this than meets the eye. You know, it's not just, you know, straight scientific. But I do think that group is really focused mostly on kind of the defense approach. And, you know, if there are actually societies and, you know, these civilizations that are either related to us in some way or not at all, the assumption that people are going to be hostile, I mean, I think it's a pretty quaint idea that, you know, we're the ones who are killing everybody, right? And if they were have this kind of technology that can pull like 5,000 Gs by, turning a corner immediately, you'd think
Mm,
that they could destroy us if they wanted to. So
yeah.
chances are they're probably a little bit more knowledgeable than we are. But
Oh, for sure. I mean, like I definitely come from the same perspective as you that it's more of a metaphysical thing. But if we were to look at it and say, okay, maybe there are other civilizations
yeah,
out there, then yeah, why would they go through all that effort? Because with that tech, they could have annihilated us already, you
yeah,
know?
oh yeah.
So, they haven't done anything yet. So I think then we're just being observed. That's what it looks like. It's
Well,
just
yeah, and that's
observation.
you speak of that. So that's, one of the books in the Book of Enoch is called The Watchers. And, when you think about this concept of the Watchers, that there are
Mhm.
those who are basically the sons of God. They're not human, right? They're angelic, and their job is to keep an eye on us. Well, look at how what we're fascinated with. Marvel movies and
Mhm.
DC movies and all these um essentially demigods, superhumans, right? Superman and all these. This is basically in our modern culture is this idea that there are those who have powers beyond us, and this is something it's not new, but we're fascinated with it. And so there's some, yeah, it's an interesting topic.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, we I mean, apparently, like you said, it's in Marvel stuff. It's a constant theme that's coming up in everything. We as humans are fascinated with whatever's going on. We know that something's out there, and that's just our nature to be curious and to just wonder about it. And it appears everywhere. It appears in our media. It appears in our dreams, everywhere. So, not to change the subject off that, but if you still have a little time to chat, I'd love to get your opinion on something else.
You got it. You got
So
it.
we're talking about turning, that telescope on other things. What popped into my mind was something a lot closer to Earth, the Black Knight satellite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you have any thoughts about that? But let me just quickly, I guess, explain for
Yeah.
anybody who's not familiar. So the Black Knight satellite is there was something photographed moving around the Earth. I forget when it was photographed, and I guess NASA was like, "Oh, it's just a piece of space junk." But there's a lot of thought that it's some sort of ancient satellite or probe that was sent
Yeah.
here, and it seems to be thousands of years old, and it's going around the Earth. And what's also interesting is back, I think, in the late 1800s, somebody had found a signal coming from somewhere around the Earth, and some sort of repeating
You and I
signal,
are
some
watching the
radio.
same stuff. You and
What?
I said you and I are watching the same stuff.
Right? Are we? And
Oh
I hope
yeah.
I'm explaining it right. I hope I'm
Oh,
doing it
you are.
justice.
You
But
are.
yeah, there was a radio signal. So it's weird when you connect the two and you're like, oh, I think this guy found this thing that's giving off this radio signal. So this thing that's space junk, a lot of people believe is some sort of ancient probe that's going around the earth. And it's still there. And like nobody's bothering to go investigate it.
Yeah.
That's another reason I'm a little suspicious about Elon Musk. I'm like, you got something right here that's weird that you can investigate and you won't do that. So, what are your thoughts on the Black Knight satellite?
Well, I think that, to think that there would be something, you mentioned earlier about the moon being an artificial satellite and
Mhm.
potentially it being artificial because it rang, right? When they struck it basically with an explosion, it basically reverberated as if it was hollow. And, you think about the moon being exactly the same size as the sun when the eclipse.
Mhm.
And you think these two things are way too, it's too, it's too much
Too much coincidence.
coincidence. Yeah.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the satellite, I mean, it shouldn't surprise us. When you start looking into antiquity and you look at the H blocks in Pumapunku, you look at the way, massive stones in Lebanon, for example, um, you know, basically cuts in stone that we can't make today, sizes and weights of things we can't move. I mean, the pyramids in and of themselves. Well, it wouldn't be a surprise to me that, an advanced civilization prior to the flood had technology and ability. And you look at the accounts from the Epic of Gilgamesh, and you look at, the accounts of Atlantis, and it seems to me like from, a lot of these artifacts that we see on Earth that there was high technology, prior to the flood, at least, or, at some point into the past. So it wouldn't surprise me at all that if a lot of these cultures are talking about people coming from the sky, which is all over the earth, right? Native Americans talk about it. the ant people, for example, in the Four Corners area of the United States. And you end up thinking, well, yeah, wouldn't we find those things also in our atmosphere, or at least in orbit? And I think that you're absolutely right on. That's actually something that, you talk about Elon Musk. I mean, that's something that people here could actually um, investigate, and they're overlooking it. It's kind of like the moon. Why haven't we
Yeah.
gone back? Well, the astronauts that were last there told us that we shouldn't come back. They told us not to. So there's a lot
That's
there.
creepy.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. So I wasn't aware that those astronauts said not to.
Oh yeah. So there's accounts of, what's really weird is on Larry King, Neil Armstrong talked about things that they noticed when they were up there. There's all kinds of accounts, and there's a lot of data. One of the things I think is most interesting is from 1996, the tether incident, which happened from the space shuttle. They were putting up a 12-mile long tether to basically test the electromagnetic field of the ionosphere, and it overcharged and it broke. And after it broke, they followed it with their cameras as it moved away from the space shuttle. And all of these craft, hundreds, if not thousands, came into, like, almost from another dimension, came in and were observing this thing. And we see that with nuclear weapons tests. We see that, basically these things appearing. And a lot of people suggest that those things are they're always here. They come into this dimension basically to observe it. And, you start getting into all of that stuff, and it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
No, truly, it's an interesting theory, because when you talk about things coming in and out of our dimension, it makes sense why we don't have much physical evidence of it.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of had that perspective of things being interdimensional. It's actually what my dad taught me when I was younger, that theory. And they say that even things like Bigfoot and all these other cryptid animals might also be interdimensional. And that's why we never find a dead Bigfoot or a dead chupacabra or something. And I think I had mentioned it in your last stream. There's this book called, I believe it's called Creatures from the Outer Edge, which talks about that these things are just coming in and out of our realm, and give some theories as to why. And that's why you can't always capture them on camera, is because they're interdimensional creatures. So when people talk about where's the physical evidence of it, well, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. They're just not of our dimension, and you can't capture it in that way.
Yeah. Well, I think Rags from Rags to Riches, Brandon, may be a ginger Sasquatch.
Oh,
I did see him. I did see him in Vegas, and he's the right size. So
he is. Okay. So you know what? We'll pose that question to him. Are you interdimensional? What dimension were you born in?
You're a Sasquatch, interdimensional Sasquatch. That sounds
interdimensional Sasquatch.
From the inner Earth.
And a ginger one. So he's rare.
Yes.
He's a rare Sasquatch.
Yes, he is. He is.
Yeah. So no, but it's so true. And that was one of the things that popped into my head, because, like, okay, if certain things about exploring space are kind of unattainable to us right now in our technology, it's not hard to go into orbit around the Earth.
Right.
So yeah. So why not be able to? Because you know what? We could go and repair satellites. We could shoot down satellites from the Earth. So it should not be an issue to go and explore the Black Knight satellite, or even turn some observing equipment into it. So either somebody's keeping everybody away from it, or people are just not aware, or, or there's some sort of unsaid thing of, like, you don't explore this stuff, I don't, I'm always curious.
I got a good idea then for you. You're starting something really big here. I think this is something that you actually can probably accomplish more than a journey to the North Pole or inner Earth, for example. This is something that's known, it's identified, we could find exactly where it is in orbit. And if you think about this, Richard Hart, with 2 sacrifices, got $1.6 billion, okay? And I look at this and I go, it'd be interesting to have a Black Knight token on the pulse chain, and to be able to do a sacrifice for the purposes of discovering this, right? And people get to have a piece of this action. We would have, you think about recovering something like this, or actually bringing it, researching it, photographing it. Because if you think about, I don't know if you remember, I think his name was Alex Baumgartner, he was the guy that went up in the balloon way, way, way up and actually jumped out of this balloon for Red Bull.
Yes.
Years ago. Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting is these platforms that basically would take, rocketry up into the upper atmosphere as high as these balloons can go, and then from there use that platform to get up into low Earth orbit. I'd be really curious. I haven't done much research on the Black Knight satellite in a while, but
Yeah.
how amazing would it be if you could actually essentially bring it into the ocean and
Mhm.
actually have it? So, I think about it's kind of funny, but it's kind of fun to think about is that could you crowdfund, especially after all of these massively wealthy folks from the Pulse chain, and from PulseX and from Hex and from all this stuff, what an amazing journey. Because you think about it, you mentioned Sir Edmund Hillary,
Mhm.
one of the first to climb Mount Everest. And you think about what is man doing these days to explore and what is
Yeah.
unexplored. And you've just touched on something that's completely unexplored. And
Mhm.
how cool would it be to work with, scientists and hexagons and pulsicans and people to literally, mount an expedition to something that could be absolutely amazing, or it could just be a piece of space junk.
But then we'll have our answer,
We would
you
know. We
know?
would know. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's interesting because I think so many of us are like-minded and are interested in the same, similar stuff. So I think it would generate a lot of interest. But this is the other thing I think. You trying to get me killed? Don't
No,
these
you
people
said
always
you were staying
end
at
up
home.
murdered?
You can be down you can be down, in front of the TVs. We'll send Brandon up. We'll
Oh,
just
no,
put a
no, but I mean, it's a joke. People who try to reveal the truth end up
yeah.
dead.
That's all right. We have nothing to fear.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't. I have nothing to fear at all. And that's the cool thing about all this stuff. It's such a fun topic, but it's amazing because we don't know. There's so
yeah.
many things we don't know, and I think it's the nature of who we are to be curious about, the unknown and to try to discover these things. Um, I love the idea. I think it's really actually quite attainable too. I'm going to do some research when we get off this. I'm going to like look into it and see how far it is, where it is, and if they track it.
It's interesting. Yeah, it must be. And you know what? The fact that that guy found radio signals, like
Yeah,
so many people are into ham, and I know you can like bounce ham radio signals off the moon and point it anywhere. So I'm like,
yeah,
maybe we should like point stuff at this thing and track it and stuff. I think they even have ham radio on the International Space Station
yeah.
that you can track this stuff. So that would be wild. I'd be game to see what's going on with that.
Could
Gosh,
you imagine? Could you
connection with that.
imagine that there's actually it's still broadcasting? Could you imagine we discovered it's almost like remember the TV show Lost? It
Yeah,
feels a lot like that, like this thing that is broadcasting. It's been broadcasting for 100,000 years. It's like that movie Contact.
yeah.
That we would discover something that's kind of hidden in this background noise. I mean, that's just it's sci-fi. It's the greatest sci-fi story
I mean,
ever.
it would be. And I mean, how amazing for the community that our community would get recognition for this big discovery.
Hey, it's Ashley Ash, right? You're the creator of this concept. I love it. I support you.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a little too disorganized to organize anything, but you know what? Yeah, who knows? Let's all figure
No,
something
no,
out.
Richard's going to do it because he's then going to have the largest diamond and the largest ancient. We're going to call it the
Spacecraft?
instead of the Black Knight, we're going to call it the Hex satellite. Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, this is a great way to get awareness for Hex and Pulse.
It would be, and it's radio things are pulses, right?
Ooh, look at
So
you! Look at you, marketing genius.
there we go. I guess I can't function in any other way except in this insanity.
I
So
love it. I
yeah.
love it.
So oh, and finesse, thank you so much. I have a cousin who I lend credibility. You know what? Thank you. I'm glad you think of me highly and believe in me because I do not feel that way about myself. I'm thinking, oh, everybody probably thinks I'm nuts, but it's okay
It's
because that's
okay.
me.
No, you're not nuts. You're just curious. You're not. You don't come across as crazy. You come across as curious.
You know what? It's fun to be curious,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I know curiosity killed the cat, but
Yeah,
at least
that's
we're
right.
having fun at the same time. So, but yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah. I'm gonna jump off. I really appreciate you doing this because it's so fun because having these kind of open conversations. I mean, Brandon like planted a tree today. Bally
Mhm.
Brand planted a tree. People are doing all kinds of things, and to have these kind of discussions, it's just fun for me. To me, this is kind of mental exercise, and
Yeah.
so I appreciate you hosting it. It's brave of you to do.
Thank you so
I
much. No,
hope that I
and
hope the CIA doesn't kill you.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, you guys all know if I end up dead, you know what? Put all your Hex and Pulse money together
Yeah,
to fight for justice.
that's right. It's Christopher Mellon. It's got to be, it's got to be the CIA.
Yeah, because I called them out and said I'm
Yeah,
jaded and don't trust anybody.
that's right.
Yeah.
You have a
So
good night. Thank
thank you
you.
so much,
Thank
and
you
thank
so
you
much for
again.
hosting.
Because you know what? Sorry, I'm not keeping you, but I just want to
Yeah,
thank
no,
you
you're
one more
fine.
time. Thank
You
you
bet.
for jumping in, and thank you for encouraging me to do this. So
You're
you guys,
awesome.
Matt was the one who encouraged me, and here I am. So thank
Yeah,
you.
you're doing great. Keep it up. Just keep going. I love it.
I appreciate
All
it, and I
right.
hope to
Take
chat
care.
soon.
Have a good
Bye.
night. See you.
Have
Bye.
a good night. All right, guys, that was a lot of fun. Had such a fun time with Matt. We're totally on the same page, as you guys can see. And thank you all for just like hanging out and like and chatting in here. Let me see if I'm missing anything else in the chat. Um, uh, Sorry, I'm trying to catch up where I was at. We need to uncover about our home planet, including the lost city of Atlantis, and find out the true history. What if we had a hex expedition that like discovered Atlantis? I'm a believer that Atlantis was a thing. I'm also reading about Tartaria a lot. I guess this idea, I'm probably explaining it wrong, that there was like this lost golden age and technological age, and that things were like really advanced, and like a lot of these old buildings that they claim are like, oh, just old stuff, that they built in the 1800s, are actually older, built with like some ancient tech, but they were just co-opted and pretended to have been built in the 1800s. It's wild. It doesn't make a ton of sense, like the way I'm explaining it, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. But if you ever want to look it up, it's like Tatarian, RIA, something like that. But that would make another interesting stream in the future when I'm a little bit more read up on that. So Bit Finesse says, I come across as measured. The rest of us are wild. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. You planted a tree, my lungs thank you. Oh yes, Brandon, was that Brandon? I guess, yeah, who planted a tree today for Hex Arbor Day. I did not plant a tree, but I bought a thyme plant and a basil plant, and I bought a bunch of seeds because have you seen the supply chain issues? Yeah. So Dollar Store had a bunch of non-GMO heirloom seeds. So I would stock up. Also, you can keep seeds in your freezer for the future if you ever want to hang on to seeds and store them. Insidious Tomas says not going to happen. What's not going to happen? The crowdfunding for the Black Knight satellite? You never know. So fight for Ashley Ash. Yeah, if I go down, you guys will know why. And right, I was about to make a Jeffrey Epstein joke, or maybe I shouldn't, but you guys know the joke. Look into the Nazca lines whenever you get time. You know what? I've been meaning to. Actually, I have it written down to look into them because they're ley lines, right? They're the same concept of ley lines. Oh, the CIA is not coming from you. Okay. Thank you. Well, they're not coming from me at the moment, but if I organize an expedition to the Black Knight satellite, then yeah, then that might be a bad thing. So Bit Finesse, guys, we got to get human rights enshrined onto the blockchain. So I guess we need to work toward having the state reconciling to the blockchain. I'm about to say something hostile about the state, but I think I will zip it. But my thing about the state, I don't think it's salvageable. I think it's too far gone, and it'll never be there for our benefit. It'll never be okay with the blockchain. So state and blockchain, let's keep them separated. So completion fails. What's up, Ash? How are you? I'm all right. I'm having a lot of fun with you all. So thank you so much for coming in here. So Hex Hoddle says you're with the KGB, so you're safe. Okay. Well, thank you. Please come and be my bodyguard. So watching 2 streams and UFC also. Well, thank you that my stream is one of them. UFC. I used to do Krav Maga. It doesn't do too good in the UFC ring, but it gets you in good shape. I should get back into it. That's one of the things. If Pulse Chain and everything does well, I want to get back into Krav Maga. And I want to continue learning English horseback riding, which is really random, but like I took 2 lessons and it was fun. You've never had an uncle named Sam. Yeah, he's not our uncle. He's like the molester Uncle Sam, right? The US. Is that the way we're gonna look at them? I mean, not that I've ever thankfully had an uncle like that. So Krav Maga is good stuff, great for law enforcement. Actually, the place I went used to teach specific law enforcement classes, and it was interesting because they would teach Krav Maga with an emphasis on keeping your gun away. So it was like one-sided Krav Maga. It was really interesting. I really loved it. But like you get to a certain point where you have to start sparring, and I hate sparring. So I mean, maybe like once upon a time I was a little more okay with it when I was 18, but now I don't like getting punched in the face. So you grew up in England, lots of horseback riding. And I have to say, okay, I know we're like jumping off topic when it comes to paranormal, but just as we're wrapping this up, I never understood English horseback riding, why posting happens, that they're going back and forth. I mean, up and down. And I realized it's like because your knees are like the suspension. They're like the shocks and it absorbs all the shocks. I loved it. It was amazing. Chester the molester. Yeah, that's kind of how we look at the government. So all right, guys, thank you so much for showing up. It's we've been in for about an hour and a half, so I'm going to wrap it up soon. Yeah, any suggestions for like topics for the next one? So I know Nazca lines was like a topic suggestion, so I'm going to write that down. Let me know if you guys have any other things you want to talk about in some future ones. You know what, and I was like, initially when I was trying to figure out the stream, I'm like, okay, do I want to have a specific guest every week? But you know what? I like this open lines idea. What do you guys think of the open lines? Yeah, and if you see anything interesting, anything weird you all want to talk about, you know, my DMs are open. If you go into the info on here, there should be my link tree, which has links to all my socials. DM me, email me, anything that you want to see on here. If you want to pop on sometime and talk about something. And I know someone in here, I'm trying to remember which one of you promised us a video of that Wheel of Fire UFO that you had seen in Michigan. I need some mods. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Thankfully, nobody said anything creepy, so I'm happy about that because my DMs lately have been a little scary. Insidious Tomas says, very cool stream. Can't wait for the next one. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being so cool. I hope this wasn't too much of a mess. Yeah, I want to make this like an every weekend thing. I had a lot of fun with you all. Tataria. Okay, very advanced. I believe they were also giants. Yeah, I would love to talk about giants. There's some thought that they're related to the Nephilim too. No trolls this far. No, I don't think I've seen any trolls on the channel. I saw somebody who disagreed in the chat, but no trolls. Those stay in my DMs. Chicago World's Fair in 1983 would be a good topic. Yeah, and I feel like, is that the one where it looked like that they had lights before electricity? No, they did have electricity in the late 1800s. No, that's Tartaria I'm thinking of. Okay, so I'm writing that down. Chicago, 1893. Let me see what else. Moonfall. Okay, sorry, those are movies. I am woke for sure. Thank you. Thank you guys for saying that. Like I said, I just always have been interested in that. Yeah, I think that covers it. I can't think of anything else to say. I think I talked all the topics out. You know what? I should probably put up a list somewhere of recommended reading where we can just suggest books on this topic to each other. I just registered a domain, so maybe we can put it up there. Tulsa bombing is a good topic. Okay, Tulsa bombing. Writing that down. Sorry, that made me think of the X-Files movie. Beginning the X-Files, Fight the Future. Bye, my online ghost. Thank you for coming. Okay, the government bombed citizens in Tulsa on purpose. You know what? I used to not want to believe that kind of stuff. But now a lot of that makes sense, you know, that there's a lot of evidence that they do that to fulfill certain purposes. And I was never a 9/11 truther, especially being in the New York City area. And, you know, I remember as a kid seeing the missing signs for different people that unfortunately died in that. And, you know, I remember seeing the widows and the children who lost their fathers. So it was really hard to come to terms with that I'm like, no, Why would the government do that? Or no, people saw the planes, fly over. But you know what? Lately, it's making more and more sense. Like, oh, maybe that was done to institute the Patriot Act, and oh, the planes did fly, but it was a coordinated thing by the US. So that has opened my mind to that. And I really do believe now that there is a conspiracy with that. And so the fact that you bring up the Tulsa bombing, I am really curious and I will look into that. High functional crypto. So a Hexakin crypto who's a pro football player grew up in the neighborhood where they bombed. Interesting. Okay, yeah, no, I'm definitely going to look into that Tulsa bombing. So, well, you guys have a good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the aliens bite. Have a wonderful weekend and a good week. And yeah, I want to aim to do this next Saturday too. I think some of you guys had suggested Saturday instead of Friday, because I guess of the stream competition on Friday. So I think Saturday night works. It's kind of fun, a Saturday night, because honestly, times changed. I feel like nobody goes out anymore. So we're all going to be just watching the streams. And that's not a judgment. Honestly, I'd rather be home streaming than out. I've kind of, these past 2 years have made me lose interest in a lot of that. Oh, that was 1921 in Tulsa. Okay, so I'm writing that down. Yeah, we all hate it. I find strength that we're on the same page there. Yeah, no, it's true. It's nice, when you do come to these realizations that are heartbreaking and that they're hard to swallow. When you finally do, it's nice to know that there are other people on the same page as you. I see a buffalo. I don't know what that means. Oh, is that for Tulsa? Oh, okay, yeah. Oklahoma City. That's what I was confusing with that. Oh, but when I said fight the future, fight the future, that bombing in Fight the Future, the X-Files movie, reminded me of Oklahoma City. So, all right, guys, DM me, email me, get in touch, anything related to this. If you want to be on the stream, again, we'll do open lines in the future. But if you want to, talk to me in advance and you want to be on this, I am open to whatever. I had so much fun chatting with you guys, and I hope you have a good night. And watch the skies, right? Is that the saying? So topic entering the fifth dimension. I like that. All right. Have a good night, guys. Bye.